Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to the Modding of Isaac with Lyte. And that's right, I've published my own very real mod. It's complete, all done, don't need to do anything more to it. It's quite small. It's just a few lines of code, but it does something people really want. Gets rid of those godforsaken sticky nickels. They're just sitting there, wasting space. So instead, we make them explode! Boom! Into 5 easy to pick up coins. Let's see it in action. So, over in Isaac, we're here. And all we really need to do is spawn it on in. So, spawn, and then you just look for sticky nickel. So, 526. 526. Kabam! We have summoned a sticky nickel. Oh no! It's gonna explode! It's a real explosion. It will deal real damage. Authentic battle damage! See? And any sticky nickel that drops will eventually explode. If you get more than one at a time, they'll wait. But generally they'll be, not right next to each other and explode each other off the ground because then they're not sticky anymore. But they'll wait, and in sequence, they'll explode one after the other. Only one will explode at a time. So if something spawns like 20 sticky nickels, they won't all just explode at once. C'est la vie. And so that's how the Sticky Nickels mod works. It's a nice, small, lightweight thing that just helps out with this one really annoying issue, but reveals certain things that you might be able to do on other fronts. So let's head back on over. I'm going to show you how it works, but I'm not going to type out the whole thing this time. The code is available. All you have to do is subscribe to the mod. It'll download it. All the code's there. You can copy it, paste it, do whatever you want to it. It's all there for you to play around with. So we're going to walk through it more or less line by line, so you know exactly what it does. And I know the cursor is hard to see on this background. Yeah, this went in there wrong. So I'll try to highlight things when they're important. So this first line, everyone knows what this does by now. You just register your mod version 1, good to go. To be compliant with community standards, we're doing local game equals big game parentheses, just to load the game because it's never going to change. And that way you can just reference game instead of game with parentheses. Then we've got our regular old configuration properties, because you might not want your sticky nickel to explode the way mine explodes. You might want to have it give you fewer pennies. You might want it to give you more pennies. So this quantity is the number of pennies that it's going to drop. Followed by the radius, that is how fast it fires them out from the center, and thus how far they will spread out throughout the room. Right now it's set to 8. You could have it lower, such that there's less spread, or higher, such that they go flying across the room. The delay is how long it takes between becoming a sticky nickel and exploding, because you don't want it to happen right away. That's just not fair, and that also doesn't give it time to flash. So right now it's set at 60. And you saw how long it took to explode. That's 60 updates worth of delay. Next up are the colors that it alternates between. It doesn't fade back and forth, it just snaps back and forth, such that it's more likely to catch your attention. Right now, it goes to red. So it has complete red tint, gets rid of the blue and green, and does not shift at all, because I like the nice dark outline and the nice dark scent symbol. If you shift it, it gets rid of the clarity of the blacks, so it's harder to see it. So I leave the shift 0. And then no shift is just back to normal. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then a bunch of zeros. And then target is nil. That is the sticky nickel itself. While this is nil, there is no sticky nickel trying to explode. we'll set it later to the thing that's going to do the exploding. Good enough? Then we're going to run all the way to the bottom where we have the exploding nickels mod callback. It's on post update because this isn't a passive item. This isn't taking damage. This is just things are going on. So once things have updated, we take a look at the status of the room and send it to explodingnickels.onUpdate. This is a standard event listener like we've used before, and it comes back here to exploding nickels on update. I like putting this underneath this to make sure that this exists before we try to use it. Most languages don't care. Lua probably doesn't care, but I'm not going to take the risk. So we've covered the top, we've covered the bottom. Let's get to the meat and or potatoes. So every time we get an update, it's probably every frame, it then asks itself, are there no exploding nickels at the moment? If there are no exploding nickels, we need to go looking for one. So we take Isaac.getRoomEntities. That grabs all the entities in the current room and puts them in a pile. Then we go into a for loop. So we take pairs from that pile, an index and an entity. Index, entity. And we go through one by one, examining them. And we do something. Okay, so if the entity that we're looking at just so happens to be of pickup type, we then check, is its variant of coin type? And then, if that's true, is its subtype of sticky nickel? If all of those are true, then we do stuff. I say it that way because ands short-circuit the evaluation. If it's not a pickup, it's not going to keep looking. It's just going to stop right there and then be like, oh, move on to the next. So you generally want to disqualify as much as possible at the beginning and have a nice clear progression of what you're checking. Because in certain circumstances, the order of the evaluation can save you a lot of processing. In this case, probably not going to save too much, but it's still good practice to know that the order you put it in could help or hurt. So if in fact it is a sticky nickel that we're looking at, then our target becomes the entity that we're looking at. Then we look at the current frame. So we ask the game to get the current frame. Could be any integer, really. It's counting up from the beginning of the run, and it's an integer. Counting right along. And then we add the delay to it to say, this is when we want you to explode. Boom. So we set who is going to explode and when. Now, I didn't initialize the frame up here. You don't really need to because you're always giving it a number. You're never asking what the frame is until after you've set it. Because the target will never be set until here, and so the frame gets set, so we're never going to ask about the frame later. It's probably better practice to initialize the frame up here. Probably. But in this case, I didn't. Every if has an end, every for has an end, every if. Ooh, we get an else if. So if there is in fact an exploding nickel, and then if the current frame count is our target frame count, it's time to explode. Okay, time to explode. What do? Well, we have another loop with a different index than anything else that goes on anywhere. You could just use I again, but sometimes you put a loop inside a loop and move it around. Index them slightly different if you can. So I go from 1 to the quantity of the pennies that we want to come from our nickel. So in this case, 5. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And each time it spawns a thing. I broke this up onto several lines such that it's easier to see what's going on in this spawn command, because these spawns can get massive. They just go on for days. So I broke it up by line such that you can see in order that it's, okay, type, variant, subtype. Just like we checked up here. Type, variant, subtype. You notice I broke the if statement onto multiple lines as well. It just helps with clarity of reading. So we got the type, pickup, variant, coin, subtype, penny. So we generate 5 of these. We start it at the location of the nickel that's exploding, and then we change the velocity to a random vector. Now this math is to make it go in any possible direction, the radius amount. So we take the radius and double it, plus 1 in the middle, and then subtract the radius. So say our radius is 8, like it is here. So that's 16, 17. Now, 17 minus, well, from 1 to 17. Well, if we subtract 8 from that, we've got, is it negative 7? It might have a slight bias. I might have gotten this math slightly off. But it recenters it. Yeah, I'm not explaining the math very well. But it gives you a random push in all directions. It might have a slight bias if I wasn't thinking straight when I made this, but you'll have 1 to 17 minus 8 will actually give you negative 7 to 9, so we probably should have subtracted 1 more from here, such that we have negative 8 to 8. But it doesn't really matter if there's a slight bias. It still just looks random. And then we have the nickel be the source of the spawning, because it doesn't really matter. So all of that was just spawning 5 pennies and throwing them in random directions. Now, Isaac.explode. This creates an explosion, as you would expect, at a particular position, so we're saying where the nickel is, with a certain source of the explosion. So if anything benefits from an explosion happening, this is the source. Very few things do, but as Isaac, causing something to die from an explosion could lead you to get something. So it's good to set the target regardless. And then the damage. I don't really know what a bomb's actual damage is. I haven't researched it just yet. I know 3.5 is Isaac's base tier damage, so this is, not quite 3 of Isaac's base tiers. It probably should be higher, but you're not going to be fighting enemies with this bomb. You're trying to avoid it yourself. And then exploding nickels, target, remove. This remove makes an entity cease to be. So the nickel poofs out of existence, because we just exploded it and replaced it with 5 coins. And then we reset the target back to nil. No more nickels that are exploding. So this was all to spawn coins, make it explode, make it disappear, and then reset the process. And now this last little bit is for the red blinking in the meantime. So if we're not looking for a new one, and we're not exploding an existing one, we're making it blink. Now, this modular arithmetic here with this percentage sign here basically counts from 0 to 4. So we've got 5 numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when it gets to a multiple of 5, it goes back to 0. So when you're counting in this, it just goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So every time it's 0, 5 frames have gone by. So say you're on frame 2493. Mod 5 is 3. I know that seemed crazy, but the last digit's the only thing you care about. Could have been 50 bajillion, 73,029. Well, mod 5 is 4. Because 9 minus 5 is 4. You just subtract 5 until you can't anymore, and still stay positive. Mod 10 is so much easier. That 70 bajillion 5009 is just 9. Whatever the last digit is, mod 10 is just that digit. So if it's both 0 mod 10 and 0 mod 5, then we set it to regular color. Okay? If it's mod 5, but not mod 10. Oh. So if it's 0 mod 5, but not 0 mod 10, means it's a multiple of 5, but not a multiple of 10. So if it ends in 5, you do the other thing and set it to redshift. Are you following? So say we start at the beginning of the run, there's a sticky nickel there already. We get to frame 1, nothing happens. It's just a normal sticky nickel who wants to start exploding, because we set it up here. It's going to start exploding. But we don't change the color yet because it's not 0 mod 5 or 0 mod 10. Okay, we get to frame 2, nothing. 3, nothing. 4, nothing. Frame 5, oh. Frame 5, we make it to this else if. But we don't make it into this part of the if, because it's 5 is not 0 mod 10, it's 5 mod 10. So we come down here to the else. So if, then, so if fails, we go to else, and we make it red. So it's red. Move on to frame 6. We don't come here, because it's not 0 mod 5. It's 1 mod 5. So the color remains red, because we told it, stay red forever. And it just stays red. 7 is 2 mod 5. 8 is 3 mod 5. 9 is 4 mod 5. 10. 10 is 0 mod 5. And 0 mod 10. So we set it back to normal. 11, nothing. 12, nothing. 13, nothing. 14, nothing. 15, we set it back to red. And we go back and forth like that for however long it takes for a nickel to explode, which you can set up here. Hope you followed that. Modular arithmetic is really handy. So when you take something mod 2, you're saying whether or not it's odd or even. Other things are when you've got sets of certain numbers of things and you wanted to examine them. In this case, it's just for switching back and forth at a certain rate. We could have used any other pair of numbers and gotten a different sequence, because if you want it to be on more than it's off, you change the balance of the numbers. But you need to make sure that they do line up if you want to use modular arithmetic. Whew, a mouthful. Because if we made this, say, mod 7 and mod 10, they'd only line up every 70. And so this logic just would not work. You'd use something completely different. But for this, it's good for going back and forth and back and forth. And that's the entirety of the Exploding Nickels mod. You've got your initialization, you've got find me a bomb, we've got blow me up, we've got do the blinking in between, and we've got the callback to make sure it happens. It is available in the Steam Workshop. I'll try to put the link down in the description. But either way, I will see you in the next episode of the Modding of Isaac with Lyte.